Hello, remarkable teachers. I'm John Davis, standing in for Mom today because she is currently back to school this week. Here we are with our back to school bonanza.
Ever wondered how remarkable teaching happens? Find out right now at Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis. Get insights from top educators, tech tips, and inspiration to elevate your teaching.
On today's show, we'll be bringing our back to school goodness to help you start off this school year well. Today, we're starting with ADHD and how to help kids with Jheri South. Then we're moving on how to teach kids with short attention spans with Dr. Marc. After, we'll talk with Dr. PBJ about how we can prevent burnout and how you can start the school year well. We're going on to a motivational talk with Stand Tall Steve about how you can have an awesome school culture.
Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis.
Jheri South is a certified teen and parent coach and master ADHD instructor. She's a mom of 7 neurodivergent children and the creator of the ADHD Simplified program. And Jheri, we're getting ready to go back to school. What are some things to remember about our precious ADHD students?
I love this question because over the years, the idea of ADHD and what it is has changed so much that there is a lot of misinformation out there. In the past, we've really just focused on behaviors for ADHD. Hyperactive can't sit still in class or really struggling with math. And in fact, the DSM still focuses mostly on behavior. So we're not doing a great job as it is really catching ADHD as a whole. And then there's so many things that not only does the DSM miss, but just in general, parents, teachers, guardians, because ADHD is so much more what's going on inside your mind than it is behaviors. Some misconceptions might be if they're not hyper, they don't have ADHD. We no longer use the term ADD. Everything falls under the umbrella of ADHD because the majority of people with ADHD will actually have hyperarousal more than hyperactivity. So that means they're overthinking. Many ADHDers are very panicky that a teacher could call on them in class. I remember I could forget my name if I was being called on. And I hear this a lot from my teenagers that they're struggling in class to pay attention because they're so worried that the teacher is going to call on them. You get kids in junior high and high school, they worry about what people think about them. Their crush could be in class or whatever it is. And now it's like, just don't call on me. Just understanding that there's a short-term memory deficiency there or deficit. And so kids become very panicky about being called on, put on the spot. They really struggle because ADHDers, one of the main reasons they struggle so much with self-confidence is because they're not consistent everywhere. You really have to be consistent in life, I think, for the most part. I mean, no one's 100%, but to have self-confidence, you have to know that when someone asks you to do something or something's going to be due or completed, that your brain's going to be able to just hyper focus and get things done. And ADHDers don't know why sometimes their brain will turn on and sometimes it won't. Another thing I want to bring up is that there are 5 things that engage the ADHD brain. For a neurotypical brain, it just has to be the thing in front of them is important or there will be a reward at the end. For ADHDers, that does absolutely nothing. So that means that many times labeled as lazy, unwilling, procrastinators. So one thing that I'll see time and time again is that ADHDers will struggle, let's even say math. Most ADHDers struggle with math and they're not getting a very good grade. They're not finishing their work. And then maybe there will be an important exam at the end of the quarter or something like that. And they know that if they fail this, they are failing. Well, one of the 5 things, novelty, interest, challenge or competition, urgency, right? And passion has to be present for the ADHD brain to get engaged. Teenagers don't know this. Most parents and teachers don't know this. So they're just saying, why can't you try harder? Just try harder. Just focus. Not helpful. Urgency is one of the 5. So this is the reason why all week something might be due and they cannot get themselves to do it. And then at like 10 or 11 o'clock the night before, their brain isn't just getting it done. It's hyper-focusing. I'll see this scenario play out quite a bit where a child will be struggling in a subject. They're not getting their homework done. And then they'll hyper-focus when it's really important because they don't want to fail. And maybe they'll get a B on their exam. And the teachers and parents will say, see, when you really try, you can do it. You're not working hard enough. They don't understand this NICUP acronym and why urgency, it just turns the brain on. The teenagers don't understand. And so even they're confused when someone asks them, why could you do this? Why could you get a B and study, but you can't get your homework done? When they say, I don't know, they really don't know.
My son, who is ADHD, he's like, Mom, this is what you have to understand about me. It's not that I can't pay attention, it's that I pay attention to everything. I have no filter. I see everything. And so when that professor is at the front talking and somebody's rustling a piece of paper over here and somebody's opening and getting a cough drop over here, all of it is going in and I have no way to just focus in. And when I have a precious ADHD student, sometimes I'll see teachers might put them at the back of the room. And I'm thinking, I know that can be a distraction, but that may not be the best place for that child.
There's something called rejection sensitivity dysphoria, or RSD, that's associated with ADHD. And 95% of all ADHDers will experience RSD to some degree. And 1/3 of all adults who have ADHD say that RSD is their most impairing symptom. Something that isn't well known, in my opinion, with ADHD is that emotional dysregulation is usually just impairing, if not more impairing, than distractibility for ADHDers. And so what this means is there's an extreme sensitivity to rejection. It's usually perceived rejection, but it can be triggered by a number of things: teasing, constructive criticism, the idea that they failed to meet your expectations or failed to meet their own. But when RSD is triggered, it turns into an episode. So nobody likes the feeling of being rejected. But when you have ADHD and RSD, it's an entirely different level.
One thing I just want to repeat that was so important was the 5 things you said: the novelty, interest, challenge, urgency, and passion. My classroom, I'm very big on gold standard project-based learning, which is so much around interest. I've taught my own children. And as a teacher, I just encourage all of us, we want to be that teacher that's the difference maker. Because when you start teaching and you're young, you think, oh, it's having the perfect comeback. No. It's having no comeback. It's saying, hey, let's go back away from everybody and have a private conversation so we can move forward. And, when I think about my own children's journey, having teachers who choose to be difference makers instead of put downers who just say, you can't, you're not, you won't. And instead saying, you can, I believe in you. It's incredible the difference that I've seen in my own kids. So much great advice, Jheri. Jheri South. And thank you for talking to us about a really important topic as we go back to school, ADHD. Thanks for coming on the show.
Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis.
Thank you, Jheri South, for that interview. You can get today's show notes at coolcatteacher.com. Now let's move on to what happens when you have students with short attention spans and how you can teach them with Dr. Marc Isaacs.
Today, we're talking with Dr. Marc Isaacs. He's a 30-year educator who has been a teacher curriculum coordinator and building administrator in both Brooklyn and Long Island. He's the author of Captivate, Engaging and Empowering Students in a World of Digital Distractions. Marc, where do we start engaging today's students? Because I think we can all agree they are distracted, aren't they?
First, Vicki, let me just thank you for having me on. You're 100% right. Schools right now are desperately fighting to win the attention of students. We're in a TikTok, YouTube, post-COVID, Insta world. The idea behind the book is that we can no longer simply teach, but we have to captivate. And we have to put the emphasis on winning our students' attention back from the digital distractions that are fighting us literally every minute of every day.
So, Marc, what's your take on cell phones in schools? Are they an unavoidable distraction or can they be part of engagement?
I think we have to try to make them part of engagement. I don't dispute all of the negative research that's starting to come out. It's been a while now since cell phones. It's not the new technology of the realm here. The iPhone came out somewhere around 17 years ago. This is a very slow motion crisis that we find ourselves in schools, but I don't feel like we can ban our way out of it. I believe that we're designed for education, not regulation. In order to leverage this technology and to leverage the changes to students, we have to put the emphasis on what we do best, which is instruction. And I don't question the damage that phones have done. I've seen it firsthand over the last 30 years as they have integrated and broken through the schoolhouse gate into our halls and classrooms. There are many negative effects of cell phones, but I know that we're not going to win by trying to regulate our way out of it for a couple of reasons. One, parents buy these phones for their kids. I don't know many kids who have corporate jobs and are buying their own $1,000 devices. The parents giving them these devices because there's an anxiety level that parents have. We can have a whole other podcast just to discuss the ups and downs and pros and cons of that. Given the culture of schools today, and unfortunately the violence that exists in schools today, parents want to know that their kids are safe and they want to have access to them at all times. Again, we could talk about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a real thing. So we'd be fighting against parents, and we need parents as partners, not as adversaries. And then the other thing is we're going to waste a lot of resources and time trying to take away phones, and which will only lead to punishments and consequences, all things that are distracting us further from the task at hand, which is to engage our students and give them the best education that we can possibly afford. If we're going to put energy into something, let it be into something that is actually going to last and that we could build off of and iterate into the future. Bans don't do that. You just have to keep coming up with more and more resources to sink into the bans. And then at some point you will give up. And then all of that time and energy will have been wasted. I'd rather us take that time and energy and put it into emphasizing education. So how can we use technology as a lever to get students to become more engaged than ever, as opposed to trying to tell them to take it away? And lastly, let's be honest, most school districts, especially since the pandemic, are giving students a giant cell phone in the form of a tablet every day for instruction. So to think that they're not using those tools to do whatever it is that they'd like to do, their own curriculum, YouTube, or messaging their friends and so on and so forth, they are. So I think we need to focus on what we do best, which is education.
And it's tough because I do use them sometimes for making film or things like that in class. But if we're not using them, I want them up and I want them off. When a kid gets a text message and it's mom or dad, hey, what's up? It takes 20 minutes to get back on task after you get that interruption. So at least helping kids, educating them, and so many things we could talk about with that. How do we help our kids? What do we say to them so that they can self-regulate? What do we say to parents? Face it, phones are addiction machines.
100%.
And we want to captivate them with learning, and they're captivated with TikTok or whatever it is they're addicted to.
It's a wonderful question. First, we have to educate parents. It's a huge part of the equation. We have to let them know, about the damaging impact that the phones are having. To put it gently, wake them up to some of the realities. They perhaps think that their student is doing A, B, and C with their phone, but in reality, they're doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
We have to teach them about the apps that students are using. We have to teach them how to access the apps. We have to teach them about not being afraid of addressing the situation and having their difficult conversations with their kids, but important ones. And so to educate them on how to become the best ally for their child in terms of having to use the phone wisely and properly, and teaching them how to use the phone. I would never give my child a buzzsaw without going over all the directions on how to use it, because otherwise in 2 minutes I would be picking up limbs from the floor. But yet parents give their children cell phones and don't even have a conversation with them about them. And at the heart of the problem is that we call it a phone and we associate phone with a certain thing. But what a cell phone is something completely different. If we can redefine what that thing is, because it's really not a phone. As a matter of fact, and I joke with the parents, look at your bill and let me know how many minutes of talk time your children have used. And the answer is probably close to zero. So we think of phones as just talking, but they don't use it for talking. They use it for a million other things. So let's call it what it is. Let's address it. And then we can really start to educate parents and move it, move the things forward. But honestly, in your classroom, just like in mine, if you develop a really good relationship with your students and they respect you and you respect them, when you ask for that phone to go away, not 100% of the time, because nothing happens 100% of the time in education, but more often than not, you will get
with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis,
as opposed to anything negative. And in those moments when they don't, it becomes a teaching opportunity on how to do the right thing in your classroom.
So let's talk about the positives, about how we can engage. If teachers could change just one thing that consistently causes students to disengage, what would it be? And then one thing that can really help kids engage.
It definitely dovetails from what we just spoke about. We have to now understand how students engage with their technology and then try to replicate those kinds of methods into our instruction. And the perfect example, and the thing that has to change right away, in my opinion, is we have to get rid of this antiquated notion of a do now, which is usually very, very boring. It takes like 3 to 5 minutes. And the reality is that in TikTok, they have something called the 3-second rule, which means that you have 3 seconds to essentially capture a user or a viewer. And if you don't get them in 3 seconds, and it's really down to a second and a half, they will swipe away and they'll never come back to your video. But yet we have a do now activity that's relatively boring, like list 3 things that we did yesterday or 5 days ago as a refresher. And then we'll give them 3 minutes, which is 60 times the 3-second rule. So we are asking them to go against their own current, not once, not twice, their own intuition, not 10 times, but 60 times. That's unrealistic. So if we want students to be engaged at the beginning, then we have to recognize the importance of that real estate in those first 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of the class and not give it away to the administrative tasks of days of old, which is why the Do Now was originally created. You guys get your stuff together and take out your homework and work on these 2 questions while I go around and make sure that you have, this, that, and the other thing. I'll take attendance. I'll give out the notes for the day. Most of those things are all happening digitally now. So we don't have to waste that time doing things the old-fashioned way. We have to, and I know this is going to sound like heresy, I don't even think that the aim needs to be on the screen or the board when the students walk in. And I know that there's a whole school of thought that like students want to know what they're going to do when they sit down to learn. There's value there. But I also know that in my 30 years, not one time has a student ever walked into a classroom, saw the aim that, how can we factor by polynomials, called their friend who's vaping in the bathroom and told them to hurry back to the class because they're factoring polynomials. Like that's never happened. So we want students to get engaged. So as soon as the bell rings, start fighting for our instructional lives and do everything that we can, not to save the best for last, but to save the best for first. So that would be the first place that I would start.
Okay, so what are some examples of teachers you've seen who've saved the best for first that just hooked them into that lesson?
I'd like to take the idea of hooks a little bit farther. If anyone's ever gone fishing, you know that there's a very unique little element to a hook. A hook is not just a simple J, because if you just have a hook like that, you may catch a fish, but that fish is going to escape because there's nothing to keep the fish. But all good hooks have the same thing in common. They have something called a barb, which is the tiniest part of the hook, but it faces the opposite direction. So once something is hooked, it stays hooked. That's what great teachers do who keep their students' attention. While it might be fun to come in dressed as George Washington and everybody gets a laugh and you get everybody going, but after a couple of minutes, that does get tired. Okay, so now what? So you're George Washington. We got it. Now, can I check my Instagram? What is compelling? What idea, what concept, what problem have you created that will not let me go cognitively until the end? That's what lessons need to be built around, not just simply around like what content will I be delivering over this 40 or 45-minute period of time, but what problem am I creating and how will I keep the students compelled and interested in that problem? That's my barb until the very, very end when I can release the tension and then send them on their way.
So can you give me an example from one of your classes?
Of course. So I'll share a social studies example. I do share it in the book. It's based on an actual conversation I had with a neophyte teacher, a 7th grade social studies teacher, and he was doing one of the most exciting social studies lessons of all time, the olive branch petition, right? It's like nobody cares about the olive branch petition. It was 1775. It was before the Revolutionary War. It doesn't even have like the Revolutionary War heat to it. The idea is, the colonists come to the king with this olive branch and he summarily rejects it. And that is sort of the beginning of the Revolutionary War without the battle. So he came to me after one of my professional development sessions where I was talking about these kinds of concepts. And he was like, he didn't say it, but I could see in his eyes like, okay, big shot. So what do you suggest for the olive branch petition? So I thought about it for a minute, and it just happened to be around March Madness time a couple of years ago. And there was a post-game handshake that took place between 2 teams. It was Bowling Green, and I can't remember the name of the other school at the moment. During that handshake line, one of the players reached across and punched the other one. And not that I'm advocating violence, of course, but what I suggested is start the lesson by showing the post-game handshake, but don't show the punch just yet, because we have to have some drama. We have to have some excitement, some buildup. You could tell them that this is the craziest video that they're ever going to see. And now they want to wait. They have to wait to see what it's going to be. And then just talk about what is the reason behind this formality at the end of a game. After all, you've been fouling each other and trying to beat each other and training to defeat the other person. And now all of a sudden you're just supposed to shake hands as if this never happened. Then you start to develop the idea, the concept of rules of engagement, the concept of the olive branch. So we're bringing out vocabulary and terms without them really knowing it, as opposed to a traditional do now, which would be something like define the olive branch or what an olive branch is. And that's not a hook. That's not engaging. So we're trying to find ways to like hide the peas in the mashed potatoes, if you will. Once that's established, I said, now you're not going to believe what happens next. And then, of course, you show that. And now you can ask the students, well, was that justified? And now they can have a debate as to whether or not we should have expected that to happen, not expected that to happen. What should the rest of the team jump in? Do we have a full scale conflict, or do we try to calm everything down? And then you have your segue. Well, the colonists and the king had the same exact moment in 1775. And now, in order for them to understand what it is that you're talking about and how it applies, you have to do what? You have to read the Olive Branch Petition and understand what it was. And then from there, you can build around the historical context, put everything in its place. And then at the end, after you've done all the work, you come back to the video. And then you can ask the students, how would King George have viewed the punch, knowing what you know about the Olive Branch Petition? So now they can synthesize and apply this concept in a new context. And then you know if they've understood the learning.
Pop culture and keeping our eyes open is so very helpful. One thing you mentioned in the book, you talk about learning and unlearning and helping kids unlearn some things. What are some specific strategies to help students break unproductive habits so they can stay engaged in meaningful learning?
So believe it or not, the unlearning part that I really emphasize in the book is the educators unlearning. The students are either go along or not go along with whatever it is that we sell them. If we sell it well, they'll go along with it. It's the unlearning. All of us carry with us sort of like the ghosts of the people who formed our educational practice. And they could have been our professors, they could have been our cooperating teachers, or just that really influential veteran when we first got in and they are, sitting in the teacher's lounge telling you what exactly you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. And that becomes like crystallized in your mind as this is what education looks like. And this is how I should conduct myself. There's something called the Einstellung effect, which is basically like if you're not looking for a new solution to a problem and you already have some success or proficiency, you won't be looking for a new thing. But there could be a better solution available to you. And this is like one of the places where we have to start. We have to address our own cognitive biases. There's a lot of emphasis now on schools across the country to address blind spots when it comes to racial and social injustice. What I'm suggesting is that we address our blind spots instructionally. And we have to try to find those practices that perhaps worked or maybe didn't work, or we perceived them to have worked in the past. And they were, and it was okay then, but it is not then anymore. And we've moved on to a new time, and our students are different types of learners. And it, of course, very often, in many ways, is shaped by the technological addictions that you had mentioned just a few minutes ago. But we can't ignore that. And that goes back to sort of my argument about why banning doesn't work, because what banning does is it basically says, well, the phone's the problem. It's not our practice that needs to be looked at, that needs to be examined. So if we just can take away the phone, we can go back to doing things exactly the way we've always done them. And that's what cognitive bias is. That's what cognitive entrenchment is. And you hear it in schools all the time. It's that's the way we've always done it argument. And what I go through in the book is that in education, we codify that's the way we've always done it. We codify cognitive entrenchment because this year's calendar looks exactly like last year's calendar. This year's PD schedule looks exactly like last year's PD schedule. This year's breaks and holidays and report cards land just about the same time as last year's. And board policy very often doesn't change. So we are almost like locking ourselves in contractually, in board policy, in scheduling, in assessing, to basically do the same thing over and over again. And that's why it makes it so difficult to actually make any headway in progressively in instruction, because we're every year, once the year starts, it's kind of like a race to check all the boxes and get to the end.
I've always heard, are you going to teach the same year 30 times? Are you going to have 30 different years? And we have to iterate and we have to improve. So, Dr. Marc Isaacs, the book is Captivate, Engaging and Empowering Students in a World of Digital Distractions. And you've given me a lot to think about, Marc. So thanks for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis.
Thank you, Dr. Isaacs. Remember, you can find today's show notes at coolcatteacher.com. So next, teachers, we'll be focusing on you with Dr. PBJ and how to prevent burnout.
Dr. Patrice Buckner Jackson, known by all that follow her as Dr. PBJ. She's the creator and host of the Disrupting Burnout podcast and author of the Amazon bestseller, Disrupting Burnout, the Professional Woman's Lifeline to Finding Purpose. So why is your heart for educators and for women about burnout?
It's close to me because it's my personal story. It's not just my research. It's not just what I've read, but I lived it, Vicki. I showed up to education every day because I love my students, because I know the impact that education makes. I know how it can transform a life. And friend, I poured out my heart for 20 years. And in 20 years, I found myself in rock bottom burnout. I had made it to the highest promotion of my entire career. And one day I went to work and I couldn't do it anymore. And I had to walk away. I can tell you what I did, but I want you to do it differently. So in that moment for me, Vicki, I arrived at work that day. I couldn't breathe. I was crying. I couldn't get out of my car. Mind you, I was vice president. We were in the middle of moving. Everything was happening, but I was falling apart. And it was in that moment that I realized I had taught everybody in my life that I could be all things to all people. And they believed me, friend. And I had nothing left. So
Because you can't be all things to all people, can you?
You can't. You can't. And it's been conditioned in us, especially in women.
Yeah.
It's been conditioned in us that we should be able to take care of our students, take care of our colleagues when they're having a bad day, do the extra thing to support the administrator. We've been conditioned that you should have work-life balance and carry all the things all at the same time. And what I know and learned the hard way is at some point, your body, your nervous system, and your mind says, that's enough. That's enough.
As someone who has struggled it off and on in my 23-year career, I think for me, naming it and acknowledging that's where I am has always been the first step to come back. But if somebody's listening to you today and they're like, Dr. PJ, that's me.
Yeah.
So what do you want them to do?
First of all, you're right. You got to acknowledge what it is. You got to know that it's not a weakness. You haven't lost anything, but you're overwhelmed. You're in what I call the phases of burning out. So once you recognize it, Vicki, the first thing you got to do is stop. Now, I know people get nervous when I say that. I'm not talking about running away like I did. You don't have to go away for a month. But how do you have micro breaks throughout the day? Or where is that time in your week that you disconnect from the email, from the parent concerns, from the phone calls? Where's fun? What is fun for you? Do you even remember? So the first thing you do when you find yourself in a hole is stop digging. You have to stop.
Okay, do you make people in your audience cry like you're making me cry right now?
It's not unusual for people to say, I really needed to cry. And here's the thing about that. That's another thing, Vicki, to allow our natural processes. We've been taught, hold back those tears, pull up your shoulders, be professional, but we have a natural ability to cry. It was given to us on purpose. It's a release valve.
Yeah.
When we walk around holding our breath, we walk around holding tension in our muscles. We're just moving through our lives. Friend, we're enduring our life. We're surviving our life. We're not thriving in our lives. And it's time for us to embrace all of it. You are a phenomenal educator. You are impactful. You love what you do, and you are human. And in order to continue doing what you love, you have to attend to the human part of you.
There are a lot of people who say that I can't be a teacher and survive it. There has to be a way. One of my mentors, Miss Grace Adkins, she passed away at 96, but she was in teaching full time till 94. Age 94, she went viral when she retired, and she was a busy woman. And until she was 90, she rode 120 miles a week on her stationary bike. Like she did it all, but she was just so peaceful. And if she burned out, she just didn't show it. Like, what are we missing?
Oh my gosh, I'm glad you brought up that example because here's the thing. One, the context in which you're teaching is not the same. And we compare ourselves to wonderful people, and it's right to honor them. It is right to honor them. But I think we miss the mark when we compare our life, our context, our service to another person, because what our students bring into the classroom today is different. It is not the same. The level of concern, the level of health, mental health need, the level of food insecurity, homelessness, like the things that come into our classrooms today cannot be compared to educators who came before us. So we can honor them, but adjust ourselves for the context in which we live. And the second thing, so you got to adjust to your context. You have to do life differently. You have to preserve your mind and your heart and your body because of what you're facing on a daily basis. But also, we look up to folks, but we don't realize what their battles were.
That's right. We don't.
No, we don't know what their struggles are. So we're comparing our troubles to their highlight reel. And that's not fair. That's not fair. I always say, if there's a leader that you look up to, either they had help or there's a mess you didn't see. And either one it doesn't take away from who they were and their impact. We need to see more truth.
I see why my friend Andrea Dozier, who is administrator at Albany State, just told me, Vicki, she's just so motivating and inspiring. My husband, he's supported me for 23 years, but he started saying a couple of years ago, May comes earlier and earlier every year, Vicki. Like, what's up with this? Because it's like, sometimes I feel like we learn nothing from the pandemic. We do more activities than we've ever done. We sign more kids up for more stuff. So there's more absenteeism. We've got more mental health issues. We've got more. And so what that does for us teachers is sometimes it feels like there's less of me because like you said, you talked about micro breaks, but I'm thinking about my this week, like a micro break is when my friend Dawn watches my class and I actually get to go to the bathroom. Like that's not good, but what do I do?
Yeah. We have to be creative and think of ways to do education differently than what we've been taught, right? And let me be honest about this, Vicki. Some of this is not just on the individual teacher. Some of this we need to talk about at the school level. Some of this we need to talk about at the school district level. For example, right, I'm having conversations with some schools about you bring in subs when teachers can't be there. Why can't you bring in subs that will rotate and give teachers more time, more breaks throughout the day? Because what I'm hearing from my educator friends is they don't even get their planning hours.
Yes, because they get taken away because they're subbing.
Their subbing is something else to do.
Yeah.
So on the school level, I think that there are resources and ways that we can adjust the way that we approach the day so that we can reset. We need a reset. We need a reset because we have been in this muscle memory of surviving for so long, not just in 2025, not just since the pandemic, but educators have been overwhelmed for a long time.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Now, the crisis will show you who you are. Like the pandemic didn't create this. It was just a big mirror. It showed us who we already are, right? So it is way over time for us to readjust how we approach the work of education so that we can preserve our people. Because, Vicki, we're losing our best folks. And
we are.
They don't care. They love the work. They love the students, but folks are getting to the point where they just can't do it anymore. So bring in some help Where are the subs? Where are the volunteers? Where
Yeah.
are the folks that we can bring into the school? Maybe some retired folks, some grandparents, some parents. Bring them in just to have them help so
Yeah.
that the teacher can get a moment. It is not just on the shoulders of the teacher. The academy, the way we approach education has to change.
Because it's not just giving a teacher a moment to kick back, drink their Starbucks, and put their feet on their desk. Like if I had a sub all day today, I literally would have more to do than I could get done in that 4 hours just for maintaining my classes and the end of the year and all of that. And truthfully, Dr. PBJ, about 8 years ago, I almost quit teaching, and it wasn't my classes, and it wasn't my students. It was prom. And
Yeah,
because
friend.
I had National Honor Society homeroom, I was IT director, and I told them, I said, listen, I don't have the bandwidth to do prom. These computers are breaking all the time. Oh no, it's not fair. And if you don't have it, and every time I hear the word fair, somebody's about to stick it to me or stick it to a kid. Like the fair police, I joke about it. But I hear educators say that every person is unique. One thing our teachers just loved this year is we have some people who travel quite a distance. And so the administrator said, hey, we're going to do morning duty for those teachers. We're not going to give them morning duty. They have kids in the car. And the gratitude that those particular teachers have. They're like, hey, I'll do it after school. I'm happy to do it after school. Let the other people not have to do that. But just that one thing just did so much.
Yeah. And that tells folks I see you and I value you.
Yeah.
We automatically tell ourselves, well, there's nothing we can do. It is what it is. Our classrooms are full. We got to get the work done. There's nothing we can do. But I've found over and over and over, we can sit down and be creative. Here's the thing, Vicki. We make crisis plans all the time. We make crisis plans for our students. So we have bad weather plans. We have fire plans. We have all kinds of threat plans for students.
Yes.
But we haven't used that same creativity and strategy to make crisis plans or care plans for our educators. And here's the thing, sometimes we can't wait on our administrators to do it.
Yeah.
They may have the title, but they are probably burnt out as well.
Yeah.
They're probably overwhelmed as well. And what I've seen is sometimes it takes a band of teachers or a group of educators to sit down and say, all right, what do we need? Like what if we could make one tweak that would make a difference for us, what do we need? And for them to go forward to the administrator to say, here's the issue, but guess what? We have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Here's a recommendation of what would help us.
Yeah.
I want to empower the educator to be their first advocate.
Mm.
We are so externally focused on the needs of everybody. And I mean everybody. If you are that dedicated at work, you do that in your personal life. You do
all
it
the
for your
pets,
own
everything. Yeah.
children. Yeah, you do it for family members, for friends. I want to empower the educator to not be selfish, but we do need to think about self-preservation. We're
So much wisdom. I see why your book, Disrupting Burnout, is a bestseller. I think that I probably need to get that book pretty quickly. Just because it's something that I think I've gotten better at saying no. I don't go quite as far in the burnout now after 23 years. I mean, I'm better at it. I can't say I've arrived.
And you know what, friend? That's a beautiful place to be because none of us, perfection is not the goal. If we have lived a certain way for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever, you can't expect your body, your mind, your nervous system to adjust overnight to a new way of living. This is about practicing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about practicing what is a more healthy approach. And you mentioned saying no, right? So I work with folks concerning, I call it, you got to check your baggage. You got to build some boundaries and you need to discover your brilliance. And you mentioned saying no. When we think about boundaries, the first thing that comes to our head is, I need to say no more. I need to say no more. And that's probably true. But I always ask, what do you need to say yes to?
Yeah, working out.
You hear me? Right? Like I had to say yes to therapy, friend. I went to counseling.
Mm.
And I had walked students to therapy for 20 years before I went for myself.
Wow.
And burnout drove me there. So your boundaries are, yes, what you need to say no about. But I always say boundaries are about what are you unwilling to lose?
Mm.
Where do you draw your line? When you look at your life, what are you unwilling to pay? Right?
Wow.
When you identify those values, then your boundaries are what are my limits to protect what means most to me in the whole way.
Wow. Dr. PBJ, you gave me a personal pep talk. So I know that a lot of people will get a lot out of this episode. You have videos, you have your own podcast, the Disrupting Burnout podcast. I know you speak at schools and travel, and I appreciate my friend Andrea telling me about you. And this is awesome. I think you have a new fan, and I'm her.
My friend, it's an honor to have this conversation with you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis.
Thank you, Dr. PBJ. Again, the show notes can be found for this episode at coolcatteacher.com. Now we'll be finishing up with some motivational encouragement from Stand Tall Steve about how you can help your school culture be the best it can be.
Today, I'm so excited to welcome Steve Bowler. He's known as Stand Tall Steve. He's an educational thought leader, a former superintendent, former art teacher. He's the author of Stand Tall Leadership and Just Do This. Steve, I have to open with this. You're known as Stand Tall Steve. What is the story behind the nickname, and how did it shape your approach to leadership in organizational culture?
I'm called Stand Tall Steve because I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'7" tall. You can't miss me. I don't blend in. I stand out all the time. And my name is Steve. So it all kind of works well together. One of the things that I try to do when I go out and I talk to schools and organizations is maintain things that are positive so that people know that you can keep going. And one of the ways that you can do that is by standing tall, being proud of who you are. It doesn't matter if you're 4'2" or you're 7'3", you can stand tall in everything that you do. It's all about your decisions you make, the people you surround yourself with, the positive attitude that you have. It's not always just the physical. It's all about your attitude and how you're going forward in life.
I love that. Steve, you've worked with transforming school cultures from the ground up. Can you share your most dramatic turnaround story? And I'd really like a creative, low-cost, no-cost solution that made the biggest impact.
Definitely. There's a lot of different schools and organizations that I've worked with, including my own when I was a building principal, where things turned around very quickly. One of the things that I like to focus on are quick, easy things that can be done that can get great impact as it relates to your climate and culture. Let's go with this one. It's called the 7-week Student to Staff Challenge. So what this is, I've worked this with a lot of different schools, and I'll specifically focus on Franklin Lower School in Rochester, New York. Talked to the principal, and I says, here's 7 weeks. We're going to have these challenges that the staff's going to do little things to the students, and they don't know that they're doing it. The first week, it's almost like this new thing that's going around, which is these hidden special weeks that the staff is all dressing up and stuff and the kids don't know, but it's a little different. I did this like 5-6 years ago. So week 1, we get the staff. Let's say you have a staff of 100 people. If you just got 10 of the staff to do this, what they're going to do is they're going to find 3 kids in the hallway that they do not know, learn their names and say something. That's it. Just find 3 kids in the hallway. Hey, come here. What's your name? Kasim, how you doing? Mr. Bowler. Kasim's going to walk away like, do you know him? No, I don't know him. What's going on? But then the next time you see Kasim, what you going to do? Hey, what's going on? All that's going to do that week is just build some quick relationships real fast. All right, next week. The next week, you're going to comment on their kicks. You're going to comment on their shoes. You're going to find 3 kids, say, hey, nice Jordans. Like those Jordans. Oh, those are cool Crocs. I wish I could wear some Crocs. And the kids be like, it's just shoes. But what is it? You're making some connections with the kids. All right, week 3. Say something about their outfit. Nice sweater, good sweatshirt. Hey, that's a nice hair braid. Oh, I like that backpack. Just something quick, make some conversation connectivity. The next week, we're going to do something called point and thumbs up. What you're going to do is find 3 or 4 kids. You're going to point, give them a thumbs up. That's it. The kids will be like, what? Wait, what? Huh?
Did the kids start talking as they're seeing this happen?
They're seeing all this happening. All these things are simple, tiny little things in order to develop some relationship with the kids. One of the things we notice in schools everywhere is that If an adult was to address a student for behavior and it wasn't their direct teacher, the kids felt like they didn't have to listen. So what we're doing is we're developing relationships with adults and kids, whether it's your kid in your classroom or not. So we had this school in Rochester, New York that did it. The principal called me after day one and said, the teacher said the kids are all over him. They're coming to him constantly. They love the relationship.
What else do you do besides pointing and thumbs up?
We have eye contact. Kids have a hard time making eye contact. So what you're going to do is you're just going to find a kid, make eye contact, and smile. That's all you're going to do, because they're going to be taken back by it, because we don't do that enough, just to make good eye contact and smile. Now, if the kid's like, why are you looking at me? The response always is going to be, nothing. You just make me smile. And that's it. And then the other one is telling a joke at the beginning of class. Have a day where at the beginning of class, you just tell a goofy joke. It doesn't have to be funny, just a goofy joke. And then on last week, it's just standing in the hallway with a sign that says good morning. Just simple, easy little things to make some connections in the building.
I could see how that would have a huge impact and how schools would want to keep going, I would think.
You would hope so, yeah. You know, it's crazy because a lot of times we always say, oh, these are all our kids. And we say things like, we want to be all together and we want to connect with everybody. But then a kid acts up in the hallway, an adult might walk right past and not say anything, or something might be going, or kids don't think they have to listen. These are simple things that we need to reestablish those relationships in the school, and it's purposeful.
A lot of leaders struggle with employee morale. What's a counterintuitive approach you've seen work wonders for staff motivation that you think a lot of organizations overlook?
One of the things is the importance and the value of empowerment of the staff, being able to give their voice, let them be able to say something or consider their opinion for decisions that are being made. One of the things I do with my school leaders when I work with principals and superintendents and assistant principals and things like that is something called the 5 levels of decision making. 5 levels of decision making. Now, I didn't create the 5 levels of decision making. It actually came from corporate, but I kind of flipped it on its head for education. So what it is when leaders are making decisions, they have to make decisions. They have to figure out what kind of level of decision they're going to make. So level 1 is a decision that the leader makes, no input from anyone else. I have to make the decision right away. Maybe it's an emergency situation. I got to go. Level 2, now I'm the leader. I'm going to make a decision after I get input from other people. So, hey, this is when I'm going to say, hey, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I might use your input. I might not. Then there's level 3. Level 3 is we make the decision all together. It's a vote. So my vote is no higher than anybody else. We go with the group consensus. Level 4 is now I'm the leader, but I'm going to let someone else make the decision after I give you my input. So I'm going to come and say, hey, remember this, don't forget this, and these guidelines are this. Go. Now you go make the decision. This is where the empowerment comes in for staff, right? And then level 5, you go make the decision. You don't need any input from me. You know the vision, you know the mission, you know the values. Go. Now here's the magic of the 5 levels of decision making. Here's the magic. You ready for it? The magic is teach everyone about the 5 levels of decision making. Just let everybody know about them. And then when you're starting to make some decisions, literally use the terms. Let's say you have a Friday focus email that you're sending out to the whole staff. And one of the items on the thing, hey gang, we have this event that's going to be coming up. It's going to be a level 3. We're going to be meeting at this time. Instantly, everybody knows, we all have a vote. I'm going to stop by your PLC meeting. We have to figure out what we're going to do. It's going to be a level 4. Instantly, they know you're coming in, giving your opinion, but they have the empowerment of it. Let them understand how decisions are made. And therefore, that level of empowerment comes. And so morale goes up because they know their role. They know where they're coming from.
Let's shift about the move because you started off as an art teacher, right? So in your experience moving from art teacher to principal to superintendent, what is the biggest disconnect between what happens in classrooms and what administrators believe is happening in classrooms?
Yeah, I taught art, pre-K to 3rd grade art. Like I was 6, 7, taught little tiny kids. They barely came up to my hip. I did step on some, but we settled out of court. They're fine. Don't worry about it. But moving from that teacher role to the administrative role to the superintendent role, you are pulled further away from the everyday, the working with the kids and everything that's going on. The hardest part that I had to deal with was regulations, expectations, and things that needed to happen and not adding more to the teacher's plate because you have to give these regulations, you have to give these expectations. And one of the things that I don't know if teachers realize about administrators or administrators realize about teachers is how much administrators really are trying to figure out how to implement these things that are required without adding more to their plate. Sometimes it's inevitable. Finding those processes and those abilities so that the teachers could just teach, that's kind of hard to do. But that's something that every administrator struggles with. And I think that's something that teachers, as much as you may be upset at the fact of something else added to your plate, trust me, we're trying, and it's not always easy to do.
So you talk about a true learning family in your work. So how is this different from a typical school's culture? And what is the first step that leaders can take to start a transformation to a true learning family from where they are today?
Whether it's at the classroom level where you're a classroom teacher and you're in charge of the class, building level where you're the administrator of the building and you want that school family, or even at the district level where you're trying to push this and make a family overall. It all revolves around having common understanding of what you respect and value. What is it that you commonly respect and value? When I go to schools all the time, I ask them, I says, hey, if I was to go around your entire campus, your entire district, your entire class, and ask everyone, what do you respect and value? Would everyone say the same thing? 100% of the times, everybody's like, nope. Everybody would not say the same thing. Now, in some of the more positive areas, they would say some positive things, but they wouldn't be the same. So the number one thing I say when you're developing that family, that anchor is, what do we collectively respect and value? Go through that process, survey, ask questions. Because if you can get that, let's say that in the school, we all say that we respect teamwork, integrity, accountability. Now we have the anchor. Now we know what our expectations are from the kids, from the adults, from everyone, and we can build from there. We're having common language. We always say these are all our kids. We're always on the same page, but what is the common language and the common thing that we're all anchoring to? Because then what we can do is we can start recognizing each other. Hey, you're really building up that teamwork. Awesome job on the integrity. Accountability is important to us, and we're holding each other accountable. And therefore, we're developing that team feel, that family feel, because we're all connected to the same thing.
So, Steve, as you work with schools, what are some of the most common anchors you see across all schools?
Number one, all teachers want kids to do well. They really do. Unfortunately, you have some parents, you have some community members, you have some kids even say that these teachers are out to get me. I have yet to find any teacher who's really out to get a kid. Sometimes you have situations where teachers are offended or upset because of things that have happened, but every teacher really wants kids to succeed. Every school wants kids to succeed. Now, their processes and their procedures might be off in how they go about doing that, but that deep desire, that's there no matter what. There's a lot of outside forces and things that are really hurting education right now, but regardless of that, that's what educators want. We want to see you grow.
Absolutely. And the nobility of teaching. Heard people say we can't fire ourselves out of the chrysalis, but I think we got to fire ourselves up about the nobility of our jobs and the nobility of our profession. So I have to ask this question. You have worked with countless organizations to improve culture. Is there a common thread among toxic workplaces that you think leaders are kind of blind to?
Yes, 100%. When you're looking at those toxic cultures, it's because there are multiple subcultures running within the culture. It's multiple subcultures running within the culture. I'm saying it twice because it's absolutely true. Every organization has subcultures. It's a matter of the strength of those different subcultures, right? And so when you have negative subcultures that are running rampant and overflowing with each other, then you have all these negativity. You have the ongoing talking and the ongoing gossip and the ongoing bad decisions that are being made. That's why I go back to say, what do we collectively respect and value? You need to anchor the main culture on collective desires. When you do that, then those minor cultures, those subcultures that are running rapid, they start to get uncomfortable. The stronger that you have everybody on the main culture and you reinforce it again and again and again. I always say repetition is the key to everything. Repetition, reinforcement of that main culture of what we respect and value. Those subcultures lose steam. Now, some of them are going to do some crazy stuff because they want their subculture to be there, but that consistency of having that collective identification, what you respect and value, that means everything. But that's the thread. Those micro cultures, those many other cultures that are running rampant.
As we finish up, so we are all professionals. We want to advance our careers. We want to be relevant tomorrow. Are there any leadership qualities you think are the most valuable in the next decade that most people may not be developing right now in education?
One of the main one, I think more than anything else, is the importance of integrity. Importance of integrity. Let me define integrity, because I've heard a lot of people say different things about integrity, what you say and do when no one else is looking and things like that. Personally, I believe integrity is what you say and do when everyone is looking. Integrity is a set of beliefs, values, and actions other people can depend on. You have certain beliefs, then you act those beliefs and values out consistently, and other people can depend on you for that. So when we're looking at your level of integrity, and you're looking at leadership, we need leaders that have identified what they respect and value clearly. You act those out consistently. You're not downplaying things or being focused on self all the time. You're making sure that you're keeping your promises. You're speaking out for what you believe in. You do what you say you're going to do. By doing that, that will strengthen leadership in schools. It will strengthen the overall atmosphere in schools and make sure that we're moving in the right direction.
And listen, Steve, that strengthens the classroom, because when you are dealing with a leader and you don't know who's going to show up today, is it person A, B, or C? Teacher A, B, or C? Sometimes the teacher gets upset by this, and sometimes the teacher gets upset by that. Like, that kind of behavior is hard for kids. It's hard for teachers. And I love that definition. I think you have a new fan, and it may just be me. So thank you so much. So it's Steve Bowler, Stand Tall Steve. He has his 2 books, Stand Tall Leadership and Just Do This. Steve, I know you're traveling and you're on the road today. Thank you for doing this interview from your hotel room and sharing your wisdom. And I'm just so encouraged. And this is going to be one of those that I'll be emailing to my own team at school. So thanks, Steve, for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Cool Cat Teacher Talk with award-winning teacher Vicki Davis.
Thank you, Stand Tall Steve, for that motivational interview. Today's show notes can be found at coolcatteacher.com. This is John, the producer for Cool Cat Teacher Talk. My mom, Vicki Davis, is currently starting school right now, so I'm recording all this so that she can have some more time to start off the school year well. That's something that we have to do as like family members of teachers. We have to just kind of step in at this time of the year so that they're not completely overwhelmed and burned out by the first week. This is John Davis signing off. See you later, educator.
This is Vicki Davis. So educators, as we head back to school, and think about those classroom procedures as students enter your classroom. Teach them on day 1 about those while celebrating kids in their unique, amazing selves. You get only one chance to make a great first impression. If you can get the kids talking about themselves and what they're interested in, that's a good way to start. I work to learn everyone's names as quickly as possible, stand at the door, call them by name as they come into their room, or learn their name as they come in. And so I'm going to live this life with joy and excitement. And this point in history, great educators matter more than ever. You are so valuable. Thank you for listening to the show, and let's make this school year count. And as always, I'm your educator who's in the classroom and on your radio. Thanks for tuning in. This is Vicki Davis with Cool Cat Teacher Talk. See you later, educator.
Stay in the loop. Visit coolcatteacher.com. Follow at Cool Cat Teacher everywhere you connect.
Cool Cat Teacher Talk is now a podcast, so subscribe in your favorite podcatcher.